beautiful people, my name is Caitlin and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a mid-April wrap-up because I've already read 4 books this month and I figured instead of having a super long wrap-up at the end of the month, I can do like a mini wrap-up now so it'll be shorter, more concise, I won't waste your time, and I can return some of these books to the library. So the first book I read this month is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book has gotten a lot of praise. You probably know all about it, but basically it is a West African-inspired YA fantasy novel that follows 3 points of view, and I loved this book. I'm always super weary of going into YA books that are super hyped on BookTube because sometimes they're not worth the hype. This is worth it. I love it so much and I cannot wait to read the second one. I think I've seen some articles that have compared it like, is it the next Harry Potter? And like, I honestly think it could be. I mean, obviously it's totally different. It's on a completely different level, but it is, I can see the characters and the plot being as universal. So I love the magic system of this. I loved the world. I loved the plot. Really liked that all the characters were complex. Amari was by far my favorite character. The one qualm I had with this book was the insta-love in it. It threw me off guard. I didn't believe it. So I kind of hope that goes away in the second book, and I think it might. So hoping for that, but that wasn't enough to dock it any points for me because I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is A Strangely Wrapped Gift by Emily Burns, and this is a poetry collection that focuses on Burns's OCD. I was interested to go into this book because I didn't know how the mental illness would be portrayed. I thought the poems about her mental illness were really good. I thought they were eye-opening, and especially for OCD, which I think is a mental illness that is greatly misunderstood in our society. It was good to have that. However, I wanted there to be more of a focus on it, especially because she has a preface focusing just on her OCD, so I thought maybe the whole collection would be on that, but really only maybe like 1/5 of her poems were. So while I liked those poems, I thought the rest of her poems could have used a little more work. And a lot of times, especially poetry lately, I've been finding that they're really short, which I have no problem with if a poem is short, but the thoughts just weren't completed in the space that it was given. So I thought that a lot of poems could have been combined into one bigger poem that would have had a more dramatic effect. So I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. It was good. It wasn't my favorite. The next book I read is an ARC I got, and it is With One Shot, Family Murder and a Search for Justice by Dorothy Marsick, and I got this from Citadel Press, and this came out, I believe, last week, so it should be available now in bookstores. But this is a nonfiction book following the author whose uncle was murdered when she was a kid, and her aunt was blamed for the murder, and she just feels like there are some questions that aren't answered there. So she goes and she interviews all of her family, all the people involved, kind of does like her own investigation on it. The premise of this book was super interesting. However, the actual doing of the book, I didn't think she did well. Because she is so close to the story, it ended up being incredibly biased in a way where I didn't trust anything she was saying. She was definitely biased towards believing everything her uncle had ever told her, and that was that, and she took that word as truth, where I think that maybe she shouldn't have. Obviously, I wasn't there, I don't know, but she was biased, which kind of discredited the whole book for me. Also, the writing was not polished. She is a professor, so I thought that maybe the writing would be more polished because she's written books before, but it was very repetitive. Like, she would repeat the same sentence like multiple times throughout the chapters with no reason. I think it was just like an overlook because she just used the same words over and over again. So I ended up giving this 1 star, which I feel really bad about because I never want to give an ARC a 1-star rating, but I did. The last book I've read this month so far is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan, and I Was so pleasantly surprised by this book. I'm not a huge fan of contemporary, but I do make some exceptions, and this was an exception. What I really loved was the magical realism element of it. So it's about this girl whose mother commits suicide, and after her suicide, she sees her mother as a bird. And her bird, through a course of events, convinces her to go back to Taiwan and meet her grandparents for the first time. And through this meeting, she learns a lot of family secrets and things she didn't know. And it was so good. I thought the characters were super interesting. The writing was rich and lyrical. I love the magical realism element of it. That was definitely my favorite part because you were questioning what is reality, what isn't reality. And there are plot twists at the end that I was not expecting at all. I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I docked it down half star because while the protagonist was okay, she did a good job telling the story, there were times in the story where I felt she was a little static, and she was only there to tell the story of other characters as like a vessel to tell their stories rather than being her own person. But I would so highly recommend this book. It was so good. So these were all the books I read in April so far. I plan on hopefully maybe reading 4 more. We'll see how this month goes, but I'll bring you another wrap up at the end of the month. Let me know what you're reading right now. Maybe you've read some of these books. If you have, let's talk about them. And like and subscribe. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.